Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into quite a mix of recent events.
Yeah, a real whirlwind.
Starting with that G7 summit moment, high-stakes diplomacy, but then this unexpected turn right at the start.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to sift through some of these recent reports, discussions. We're using a new YouTube source, mainly, one that pulled together a lot of clips and commentary.
And we're going to look at the G7, yeah, but also a new tech venture, some big legislative debates, and even, well, some pretty raw online stuff.
It's a lot to cover, but the idea is to pull out the main points, the key insights from all this material.
Help you get informed quickly, right? Without feeling like you're drowning in information.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're working directly from a pretty detailed transcript of that YouTube video, which kind of connected all these different threads.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how these things that seem separate, they actually, they connect, they shed light on what's happening right now.
For sure. So should we start with the G7? Alberta, Canada?
Yeah, let's do it. That press conference scene sounds pretty wild.
It does. So the source describes this scene.
Right.
You've got Donald Trump, Prime Minister Carney, other leaders. And Trump's behavior, well, it apparently went off script pretty fast.
Off script how?
He started praising Vladimir Putin, said something like, Putin speaks to me, he doesn't speak to anyone else.
Wow, okay. In that setting.
Yeah. And then, like, a complete pivot, started attacking Democrat-run cities back in the U.S.
Huh. That's quite a shift for an international press conference. And what happened then? Didn't Carney step in?
He did. The reporting says Prime Minister Carney, as the G7 chair, he actually had to stop the whole thing.
Stop the press conference.
Yeah. Said it was getting so utterly humiliating for Trump and, well, for the whole G7. The source even has this quote about Carney, exercising his role and people shouting, "Let's go, thank you very much, out, guys, out."
That's extraordinary. You just don't see that happen at this level.
Tells you how tense it must have been, right? And it wasn't just that. The material mentions Trump also complained about the G7, how it used to be the G8.
Oh, right. The Russia issue.
Exactly. He blamed Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau for throwing Russia out.
And he called that a mistake.
A very big mistake, according to the source. And then he suggested, that the war in Ukraine wouldn't be happening if Russia was still in the group.
Or if he'd been president 4 years ago. That's a recurring theme for him.
Definitely. A very different take on, alliances in recent history. But then he shifted again, didn't he? Back to the U.S. cities.
Yeah, those Democrat-run cities. The reporting mentions specific ones.
It did. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. He accused them of being overrun by criminals.
And didn't he say something strange about L.A.?
Uh-huh. Claimed people there weren't really from L.A. They really weren't from California. A pretty sweeping statement.
Okay. And immigration came up too.
Oh, yeah. Big claims there. The source details Trump saying President Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country.
21 million.
That's the number cited. And he went on to claim that vast numbers of these people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails.
Accusing other countries of emptying their jails into the U.S.?
Essentially, yeah. And that these people are mostly in all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and the intent was to use them to vote.
Wow. Now, the source material, did it offer any counterpoint to that?
It did. It brought up California's economy, being the fourth largest GDP in the world, and pointed out that many so-called red states actually receive more federal money than they pay in, often getting funds from states like California, sort of challenging that narrative.
Okay, got it. And staying with the G7 for a moment, there was tension with Canada too, wasn't there, on trade?
Right. Different ideas about trade deals. Trump, according to the source, liked the idea of tariffs, simple taxes on imports.
He called it simple, easy, precise.
Exactly. Whereas Prime Minister Carney apparently had a more complex idea. So a fundamental disagreement there.
Interesting. And wasn't there some buzz before the summit about a potential EU tariff deal?
There was. Reports were flying around that the EU had agreed to a 10% U.S. tariff.
But that wasn't accurate.
Apparently not. The European Commission shot those down pretty quickly, called them speculative, and said they do not reflect the current state of discussions. They reiterated their objection to what they called unjustified and illegal U.S. tariffs.
Shows how fast information, or maybe misinformation, can spread during these things.
Definitely. And speaking of setting the stage, Trump's social media before the G7 seemed, well, pointed.
Oh, yeah. What did the source say about that?
He apparently posted about using ICE and Homeland Security to, quote, specifically target Democratic cities, called them democratic power centers.
So doubling down on that theme we saw in the press conference.
Exactly. And the posts included other claims, too, like radical Democrats are sick of mind and turning everything trans, and Democrats want transgender for everybody.
Strong language.
Very. And he justified targeting those cities by claiming that's where they use illegal aliens to expand their voter base, cheat in elections, and grow the welfare state, robbing good-paying jobs.
Yeah.
You get the idea. Contrasted it with the heartland having no sanctuary cities.
So the rhetoric was already ramping up before he even got to Canada.
Seems like it. Okay, so should we shift gears? Move away from diplomacy to tech.
Yeah, let's talk about Trump Mobile. That's a new one.
It is. Eric Trump announced it. The source highlights the goals. Pretty ambitious stuff.
Like what?
To revolutionize cell phones. Promises like do it better, do it safer, more functionality, more features.
And the whole Made in USA angle.
Right. Initially, that was the claim. Customer services based in St. Louis, Missouri.
But the phones themselves.
Yeah, Eric Trump later clarified that. Said they're not currently made in the U.S. But the hope is eventually all the phones can be built in the United States of America. The slogan is, built for Americans by Americans.
Okay, so what's the actual service offer?
It's $47 a month. Unlimited calls and texts to over 100 countries. And they're talking about adding other things later.
Right.
Healthcare services, telemedicine, even roadside assistance, bundling things in.
Huh. Interesting mix, but the pitch seems pretty targeted, doesn't it?
Very much so.
Oh.
Eric Trump's quote was something like, I hope every Republican uses one, and I hope, frankly, every American uses one. He framed it as a patriotic message.
So less about the phone tech itself, maybe, and more about loyalty.
Yeah.
Building a specific user base.
Seems that way, like creating a sort of parallel economy, tapping into that political identity.
An interesting strategy in the mobile market. Okay, so from new ventures, the source takes a darker turn, right?
Yeah.
Into online discourse.
Yeah, it shifts focus pretty dramatically. It highlights just how intense and frankly disturbing online interactions can get.
What was the specific incident mentioned?
It involved the host of the YouTube video that compiled this material. Apparently, a MAGA influencer named Taran William posted a photo online.
A photo of the host.
Of the host and his family, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Including their 8-month-old daughter. They were at a protest in Pasadena.
Oh, wow. Posting pictures of a baby online in that context. That sounds risky.
And the comments that followed? Well, the source lists some of them. They're pretty awful.
Like what?
Directed at the baby. Things like, poor kid didn't choose her parents. The poor girl will be a he within a few years. That's a future trans.
Oh my God, about an infant.
Yeah. And worse, these people taking infants to something that easily turns violent is child abuse. He's obviously a pussy, and she either has a boyfriend or she has cock and balls.
Okay. That's vile.
It is. More comments like, sad doesn't have a chance in life, and just flat out child abuse sad.
It just shows that incredibly vicious side of online stuff, doesn't it? How personal and ugly it can get.
Absolutely. It really paints a picture of these hostile online environments, these echo chambers where this kind of rhetoric just escalates, a reminder of, the dark side of social media.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, shifting again. Let's talk policy. The source mentions a budget bill.
Right. What the source calls the disastrous budget bill.
Okay, what's the story there?
It apparently passed the House, pushed by MAGA Republicans, and the aim is to get it through the Senate, too.
And the projected impact. What would it actually do?
According to the source material, the effects would be pretty widespread. It would potentially take away health care for 15 million Americans.
15 million? Wow.
Yeah, and cause millions to lose SNP benefits, food stamps, and also housing assistance. Big cuts to social programs.
Okay, major impacts on people. What about the national debt? The deficit?
Well, that's where the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, comes in. They're the nonpartisan scorekeeper for Congress.
And what did they say?
They projected this bill would add trillions of dollars to the deficit, trillions, and called it possibly the worst bill ever for our deficit.
Trillions added to the deficit. Okay. How did the bill's supporters react to that assessment?
Not well, according to the source. MAGA Republicans apparently went on the attack against the CBO.
Attacking the CBO. What did they say?
Called them radical leftists and radical Democrats, trying to discredit the analysis.
But the CBO is nonpartisan, right? Isn't the director a Republican appointee?
He is. Philip Swoggle.
Yeah.
Appointed by Republicans. And he defended the CBO, saying, look, we're a nonpartisan organization. We work for the entire Congress. He admitted they sometimes get some things wrong, but stressed they do our best in a nonpartisan professional way.
So it's not just about the budget numbers then, is it? It's about attacking the referee when you don't like the call.
Seems like a pattern, yeah. Undermining these nonpartisan institutions when their findings don't fit the political narrative, that has, longer-term consequences for policymaking based on actual data.
Definitely. And the source also mentioned something about who benefits and who loses from the tax side of this. A graphic.
Yeah, from someone named Aaron Rurr. It break down the projected impact of the tax bill component. It suggested the bill would cost the poorest households about $1,600 on average.
Cost them. So they'd pay more or lose benefits worth that much.
The implication is a net loss of $1,600 for the poorest, while, on the other end, the richest households would gain at least $12,000.
So a net gain of $12,000 or more for the wealthiest.
That's the projection highlighted. The source characterized it as a significant transfer of wealth from the poorest Americans to the richest.
That's quite a stark contrast, really highlights the potential economic inequality impact.
It does. And just to round things out, the source also briefly mentioned some polling data.
Oh, yeah. Anything interesting?
Just a snapshot from Verify. It's a generic ballot poll, so just asking party preference, not specific candidates. It showed Democrats with the lead, 45% to 37%.
Okay, so a little snapshot of the political mood amidst all this. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from G7 diplomatic clashes and that really unusual press conference
To Trump Mobile trying to build this niche market.
to the really nasty side of online attacks.
And then this huge budget bill debate with major projected impacts on healthcare, the deficit, and wealth distribution.
It feels like a whirlwind, like we said at the start, but when you put these pieces together, the G7 rhetoric, the economic policies being pushed, the branding of Trump Mobile, even the online behavior, they don't feel quite so separate, do they?
No, you start to see the connections, the same themes, the same kind of polarization playing out across different arenas, diplomacy, business policy, online life. It's all interconnected.
So thinking about all this G7 drama, the new phone venture, the budget fight, the online toxicity, what does it all mean when you step back? Each piece seems to feed into this bigger picture of current events that, ultimately affect all of us.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? In this age where information and sometimes disinformation travels instantly, you have all these competing stories. How do these different things, events, policies, businesses, online fights, how do they all weave together? How do they shape how we see the world and maybe shape where we're heading? What really stands out to you when you try to connect those dots?